What's up guys, Toby Morrison here from CFS Health, and today I'm going to share with you a little bit of history about what CFS was really like for me, because I had a guy yesterday ask me a question when I met him. He said, how bad were you with your chronic fatigue syndrome? And it was over 10 years ago since I struggled with what is chronic fatigue syndrome and everything it throws at you. But at my worst, I couldn't lift my head off the pillow, and it's hard to think about that stuff because you want to pretend it never happened. You don't want to look at it ever again because it was so fucking hard. Like people just think the word chronic fatigue means you're just tired, but real chronic fatigue syndrome is like almost like your body and mind is paralyzed. You literally can't move. Your symptoms are so strong that they just consume you, your throat, your glands. Your body is just completely shut down. And at my worst, I couldn't lift my head off the pillow. I wanted to. I opened my eyes as soon as I woke and I said, okay, let's go, let's get out of bed. And as soon as I tried to get out of bed, I couldn't move. I literally went to mentally get out of bed and physically my body wouldn't move. And so there's such a misconception out there that it's all in your head. It's just, yuppie flu. But that's all bullshit. If you were making this up, then why would you make that up? Why would you make that you can't get out of bed up? Of course, a healthy person can have lazy days where they don't want to get out of bed and life's hard and they're in a bad mood, or they're just not happy with their life, which is a universal thing. We all have that from time to time. But chronic fatigue syndrome is, you don't have a choice. It's not like you can just if you could, you would get out of bed. But when you've got CFS, especially so severe, you literally can't. Maybe even walking for 1 minute, you might feel like you're about to faint. I remember I used to go to shopping centres and I was so severely ill at the time that I could barely hold myself up for more than 10 minutes before I got dizzy and almost fainted. Talking to a friend on the phone for 10 minutes was tiring. Going to events and parties, wondering if I'm going to be okay if I go to this event because I might have a severe setback and might be sick for 2 weeks. This is the thing. It's a complex illness. One of the things with chronic fatigue syndrome, especially after a period of kind of 3 to 6 months where after you've completely exhausted yourself and all you do is sleep, the opposite actually happens. So you literally end up not being able to sleep at all at night. You have disrupted sleep patterns, which makes you even more tired and more irritable, and your symptoms even onset of symptoms come up even more because you're not in homeostasis, you're not in balance. So it's important sometimes just to share the real stuff. I'm all about sharing honest tips and things that are going to help people. But maybe this video will help you too. And I'm not really used to sharing my experience because I tend to look on the glass half full and move on from bad stuff. However, if I was back in my position, if I was still sick 10 years ago and I saw someone share their experience and tell it how it was, it would make me feel a lot more calmer and a lot more at peace with my situation. So this is why I'm doing this video, and it makes me feel uncomfortable doing it because I don't really like talking about it. I like to give proactive help rather than talking about what was. But hey, as always, I do these videos because if it helps one person, it's worth doing. I remember when I went to my PE class. So I was 17 at the time when I was really struggling. I was in hospital and all that, and I came out of it. And the doctor said, go to school as much as you can without making yourself feel worse. So the goal was to get to school 1 hour per day for the week. And I remember, I used to be one of the fittest guys at the school, right? I used to run athletics, I used to do everything. I was fit and strong and healthy, And so then I just became this like weak, deconditioned guy who could barely like lift his head, and just like getting in the car for 10 minutes was a frigging marathon for me, right? And so I'd go to school and it was the hardest hour of my day, and I'd be shitting myself the whole time, just like freaking out about, just how crap I felt. And I remember I had PE class, and the teachers knew I couldn't do anything physical, so they said, just go along to the class. Now, my PE class was a 400-meter walk to the beach, right? At the time, I thought I couldn't even walk for 1 minute. So for 400 meters, I was like, I don't think I can do this. How am I going to be able to do this? And I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I walked down, and this is a guy who lost like almost 15 kilos of muscle and body mass, from really fit to then really, fatigued and deconditioned. And as I walked to the PE class, I sat down and watched all my mates, play sport and do what they did. And then we walked back, and it was funny because normally I would have looked at that and gone, this life sucks and I can't believe I did this, but I was so motivated, the fact that I even was able to walk down the beach for 400 meters and come back and be okay, that was a massive achievement for me. That was what success was back then. And I remember coming home and I told my mum and dad, and I was so proud of myself, and I even wrote a little note on the fridge and put it up there, the fact that I actually went to PE class today and walked 400 meters. That's to give you some perspective of what CFS is really like. Now, it's not always like that either. Some days are better than others. And my job now is to inspire people to make sure that they get their health and life back to a level of normality and functionality that they can do things. Now, we all know that life isn't easy, right? But on top with an illness, it's hard. It's really hard. And the whole reason why I created this whole thing, CFS Health, which CFS wasn't standing for chronic fatigue syndrome, it was standing for choice, future success, because you can actually make a choice. Just like I did at that PE class when I was sick, I made a choice to do that, and I was able to do it and complete it. The question is, you've got to ask yourself is, what do I need? With chronic fatigue syndrome, you search for so many answers. You search for the cure. The thing is, there is no cure. And by cure I mean medication, a pill, one thing that will fix you. There's nothing out there like that for CFS because it's so multifaceted, it's so dimensional and complex that you can't just fix it with one thing. Sure, there's things that will help you in different aspects of your life and your health, but there is no single cure for chronic fatigue syndrome. And that's a hard pill to swallow, literally, because you don't know what's next. But again, choice, future success stands for choosing your future for the better. So, I actually Googled the word cure the other day just to double check what it actually meant. And it actually said to look after yourself, to teach yourself betterment of your health. And I thought that was kind of cool because that's self-responsibility right there. So to cure oneself is to actually, what can I do? I'm responsible for my health. How can I help myself? Overcoming something that was once an illness or a problem. That's a cure. So whatever you do today to help yourself, well, you're helping yourself cure yourself from the suffering. And you'll know what to do. Or maybe you won't, but you'll keep searching for those answers, but search in the right places. It's so important to have hope and belief, and it's a scary thing because you think that you're not going to get your life back. But what you've got to see is you've got to see it on the other side and go, what am I getting out of this? What am I learning from this? What am I learning about myself from this? You know? There's a book by Alistair Lynch, who was a famous football player, and he had chronic fatigue syndrome too, and he overcame it. He's healthy now, and I've met him. We've done a radio show together and stuff. He's an incredible guy. And he wrote in his book, CFS is so bad that you wouldn't wish it upon your worst enemy. And it's true. Because it's so painful, it's so hard. It doesn't just affect you, it affects your entire universe, your family, your friends, your relationships, your job, your schoolwork, your career, your future. You don't know what's going to happen. But you've got to choose to create a new future. You've got to choose to create a better you. Choose to help yourself. You know, that's what it's about. Because if you keep going around in circles and giving up and not believing that anything's possible, well, if you believe it's not possible, then it's not possible, right? How can I change your belief? You can change your belief. You know, this is what inspired me so many years ago, is to inspire people to believe in themselves, to see a different light, to see a possibility, to see potential. Because at the end of the day, like, you are in control of you. And that doesn't mean it's easy, that doesn't mean it's not for everyone, because not everyone is willing to be responsible for themselves. But, you know, rather than be overwhelmed and like look at the glass half empty all the time, find a reason to do what you need to do to help yourself. And you know, my number one tip is stop looking for the answer and stop looking so far ahead. Focus on the 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5% improvements over time. That's what's going to help you. You know, shit, I used to go to school for like 30 minutes and then I felt so ill that I would come home. You know, I used to get my dad to drive me to the hydrotherapy pool every single morning before school for 5 minutes just so I could do some form of movement for my body, even though I was in complete pain. The reason why I did it was so I would, you know, relieve the pain. Some would choose that the pain would be too painful to even get in the pool or get in the car. But I knew that it was going to help me, so I did it. Not every day was a success. Most of the time it was a failure, but I chose to keep going. Every second week I had a setback. Every second week I would be in bed and sick. My immune system was so low that I would get every second cold and flu there was in winter. My immune system was so low and so weak that, you know, any kind of stress would just get me. You know, I had to create space for myself. I had to get rid of people who weren't serving me in my life. I had to stop doing the things that I loved. I had to stop playing sport. I didn't run for 2 years. I didn't run for 2 years. Like, and for someone who was fit and healthy, that's like a life sentence, right? I read tons of self-help books, personal development books, anything to do with improving oneself. I was 16. Before I got chronic fatigue syndrome, I never read a book. I was academically dumb. I didn't like reading. I hated it. I could barely sit still and read for 1 minute. And as soon as I got chronic fatigue syndrome, I would read 1 page per day. And sometimes I'd stay up till 2 a.m. just trying to read the next page because I was so desperate to help myself and improve myself. I mean, you've got to stay strong. You've got to find a reason to keep going. One of the biggest reasons back then when I was struggling was to survive was for my family. Because I loved them so much and they loved me so much, they cared for me so much that I wanted to be there for them. I just wanted to get better for them. You know, I had a greater reason than myself to get better, therefore it pushed me and progressed me to do that. You know, you have to find something intrinsic, something so powerful within inside you to really get you further in life. Because if it's just about getting the old you back, then it's probably not going to happen. It's hard. You know, it's hard to even share this because it's so hard. You know what I mean? It's tough. And you know, just know it's possible. You know, and you're going to go through different stages. You know, I had one back then when I was really sick, I had a teacher that used to say to me, you know, Toby, you've just got to visualize, you'll get better. And I was like, screw you, man, you don't know how I feel. You don't even know what it's like. You know, how can I just visualize myself getting better? And years later, I understood what he was saying. He was really just saying, paint the picture you want to see and start doing that. And it was hard to swallow, but once I took responsibility for myself, I started to see a clear path and started to move forwards with. Again, it wasn't overnight, it wasn't easy. And life is a continual journey. You're going to continue to learn and grow as you grow. The more responsibility you have, the more responsible you have to be. You know? But life after CFS is so beautiful. Like, you know, I said to this guy yesterday, I said, you know what, I probably need to remember how bad I was and how hard it was, because, you know, sometimes life gets in the way and we have life problems. But, you know, sometimes, man, it was the hardest 4 years of my life, and I forget about that sometimes because life has been so good to me now. You know, I have to deal with like normal life problems now, and I think that's hard sometimes, but deep down that doesn't mean, that's nothing compared to what I had to deal with then. The illness and how bad it made me feel every single day. How hard it was physically and emotionally and spiritually to keep going when my body didn't feel like it. To keep not giving up even though everything was against me. Just don't give up. You know, what's one thing that's keeping you here right now? Ask yourself, you know, if you're in that's such a tough time right now, what is the one thing that is keeping you here? Is it your family? Is it your pet? Is it you? Is it your faith? Is it your work? Is it your passion? Is it your job? Is it your kindness? You know, one thing that I've experienced over a long period of time is that even though if you're suffering and struggling, you can still help people. You can still be kind, you can still save someone else's life. And the amount of times in my life when I've been down and out, I've probably had the best conversations with people who needed it. And, you know, I could sit here and tell you about all my achievements, about writing a book, about, you know, just failing English. My Japanese exchange student got a better entry score than me, and then I went on to write a book. I could tell you about, you know, my online program and all the coaching and traveling and TV stuff I've done before, but that stuff doesn't mean anything. Like, yeah, they're nice and it looks good, but like, that's not that important. What's important is not giving up in this moment. Everything else is just noise. So today, focus on right now. Realize that you can do this. See, this video is supposed to be about me talking about how bad my past was, but you know, I can't help myself but to help you help yourself, you know. I just felt like I had to share that with you today. I hope it resonates with you. Done.